What if I told you that one city, founded by outcasts and raised on legend, would rise to command 60 million lives, stretch its influence across 3 continents, and forge a legacy so enduring that its echoes still shape our world today? This isn't just the story of ancient ruins and fallen emperors. This is the origin of modern law, the roots of our languages, and the reason your calendar looks the way it does. Rome didn't just build an empire, it built the world we live in. But here's what makes Rome's story truly incredible. This wasn't just about conquest and glory. This is a tale of brilliant innovation colliding with devastating corruption, of visionary leaders building something extraordinary, only to watch their successors tear it apart. Rome didn't just rise and fall once. It rose, adapted, transformed, and fell multiple times over more than 1,000 years, each cycle teaching us something profound about power, ambition, and human nature. Today, we're going to trace the complete arc of Roman civilization, from a tiny settlement on 7 hills to the master of the known world, and finally to its dramatic collapse that plunged Europe into centuries of darkness. But more importantly, we're going to discover why understanding Rome's journey is absolutely crucial for understanding our world today. The year is 753 BCE. While the Greeks are already establishing their classical civilization and mighty empires are rising in the east, a small group of Latin tribes decides to build a settlement along the Tiber River in central Italy. They choose this location for good reason. The 7 hills provide natural defense, the river offers fresh water and transportation, and the surrounding plains are perfect for agriculture. But what they create here will eventually become something unimaginable. The early Romans face a harsh reality. They're surrounded by more established peoples. The Etruscans to the north have superior technology and culture. Greek colonies dot the southern coast with their advanced philosophy and arts. Celtic tribes threaten from the mountains. For Rome to survive, it must do something different, and that something different becomes the secret to its eventual dominance. The Romans become the ultimate adapters and integrators. Instead of simply conquering their neighbors, the early Romans study them, learn from them, and incorporate their best innovations. From the Etruscans, they adopt urban planning techniques and religious practices. From the Greeks, they absorb artistic traditions and architectural principles. But they don't just copy. They improve and systematize everything they touch. The legendary founding of Rome by Romulus and Remus, raised by a wolf, captures something essential about Roman character. These aren't people content with peaceful farming. They're warriors and builders, dreamers who back their visions with incredible determination and strategic thinking. Whether the founding legends are literally true matters less than what they reveal about Roman values, strength, pragmatism, and an unshakable belief in their destiny. The early Roman government reflects this practical approach. The monarchy isn't absolute like in other ancient kingdoms. Kings rule with the advice of the Senate, a council of elder patricians who represent Rome's founding families. This system creates stability while allowing for adaptation and growth. More importantly, it establishes the principle that will define Roman politics for centuries. Power should be shared and checked, even if the reality often falls short of the ideal. By 509 BCE, the Romans make a revolutionary decision. They overthrow their last king and establish the Roman Republic. This isn't just a political change, it's a complete reimagining of how a civilization can organize itself. The Romans create a system of checks and balances that seems almost modern. 2 consuls share executive power, serving only 1-year terms to prevent tyranny. The Senate provides continuity and wisdom. Various assemblies give citizens a voice in governance. But here's what makes the Roman Republic truly innovative. It's designed to expand. Unlike the Greek city-states, which remain focused on their immediate territories, Rome creates a system that can incorporate new peoples and territories without losing its essential character. The Romans developed the concept of citizenship that can be extended to conquered peoples. They build alliances rather than simply extracting tribute. They create legal frameworks that work across different cultures and languages. This expansion begins almost immediately. The Romans systematically conquer their Italian neighbors, but they do something unprecedented. Instead of ruling as foreign occupiers, they offer partnership. Some conquered peoples become full Roman citizens. Others become Latin allies with substantial privileges. This creates a growing network of communities with shared interests in Roman success. The military system that enables this expansion is equally revolutionary. Roman legions aren't just collections of individual warriors like most ancient armies. They're disciplined professional organizations with standardized equipment, tactics, and leadership structures. Roman soldiers serve for decades, becoming career professionals rather than seasonal fighters. They build roads, construct fortifications, and establish supply lines with engineering precision that rivals their combat effectiveness. The Roman approach to warfare combines tactical flexibility with strategic patience. They're willing to absorb initial defeats if those defeats teach them valuable lessons about their enemies. When Hannibal crosses the Alps and devastates Roman armies during the Second Punic War, most civilizations would have sued for peace. Instead, the Romans adapt their tactics, avoid direct confrontation, and gradually wear down their brilliant opponent through superior logistics and strategic thinking. This brings us to one of Rome's greatest strengths, its ability to learn from failure. Roman culture celebrates persistence and adaptation over individual brilliance. Roman generals who lose battles but preserve their armies and learn valuable intelligence are often praised more than those who win costly victories. This creates a civilization that gets stronger through adversity rather than weaker. The conquest of the Mediterranean transforms Rome from a regional power into something the world has never seen before. By 146 BCE, Roman legions have destroyed Carthage, conquered Greece, and established dominance over most of the known world. But this success creates new challenges that will ultimately destroy the Republic. Massive wealth flows into Rome from conquered territories. This wealth concentrates in the hands of the political elite, creating unprecedented inequality. Small farmers who form the backbone of Roman society are displaced by slave-worked estates. The citizen soldiers who built the empire find themselves economically marginalized in the empire they created. Political competition becomes increasingly bitter as the stakes grow higher. Traditional Roman values of civic duty and shared sacrifice erode under the pressure of enormous wealth and power. Politicians begin appealing directly to popular assemblies rather than working through established institutions. Violence enters Roman politics as ambitious leaders recruit private armies from displaced veterans and urban poor. The careers of the Gracchi brothers in the 2nd century BCE preview the conflicts that will destroy the Republic. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus attempt to address growing inequality through land redistribution and grain subsidies. Their populist approaches challenge traditional senatorial authority and established procedures. Both brothers are eventually killed by political opponents, establishing the precedent that Roman politics can be settled through violence. This pattern accelerates through the 1st century BCE. Ambitious generals like Marius and Sulla fight civil wars that devastate Italy. The Roman legions, once focused on external enemies, turn their weapons against fellow Romans. Each conflict further weakens republican institutions and normalizes the use of force in political competition. Enter Gaius Julius Caesar, perhaps history's most consequential individual. Caesar embodies both the best and worst of late Republican Rome. He's a brilliant military commander who conquers Gaul and adds immense territory to Roman control. He's a skilled politician who understands how to appeal to both elite and popular audiences. He's a visionary who sees possibilities for Roman expansion and development that his contemporaries cannot imagine. But Caesar also represents the fundamental contradiction that destroys the Republic. His success makes him too powerful for republican institutions to contain. His crossing of the Rubicon River in 49 BCE isn't just an act of rebellion. It's recognition that the Roman Republic can no longer accommodate the kind of leaders its own success has created. Caesar's dictatorship solves many immediate problems. He implements land reforms, extends citizenship to Gallic tribes, creates public works programs, and begins planning ambitious projects that would further expand Roman power. But his concentration of authority terrifies senators who see their traditional privileges disappearing. His assassination on the Ides of March 44 BCE represents the last gasp of republican resistance to monarchical power. The civil wars that follow Caesar's death finally destroy what remains of republican government. Caesar's heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus, emerges victorious from 13 years of conflict. But Augustus is too intelligent to repeat Caesar's mistakes. Instead of ruling as an obvious dictator, he creates a system that preserves republican forms while concentrating real power in his hands. The Augustan settlement establishes the Roman Empire and begins what historians call the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of unprecedented peace and prosperity. Augustus maintains the Senate, the consulship, and other republican institutions, but ensures that ultimate authority rests with the emperor. This hybrid system provides stability while allowing for continued expansion and development. Under imperial rule, Rome reaches its greatest extent and achievement. The empire stretches from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine to the Sahara. Roman law provides a common legal framework for dozens of different peoples. Roman engineering creates roads, aqueducts, and buildings that still inspire wonder today. Roman cities become centers of learning and culture that rival anything the ancient world has produced. The secret to imperial success lies in Rome's continued ability to adapt and integrate. The empire isn't simply held together by military force. Roman citizenship expands steadily, eventually encompassing virtually all free inhabitants of the empire. Local elites are incorporated into imperial administration. Regional cultures are respected and preserved while being connected through Roman infrastructure and institutions. This creates something unprecedented in human history, a truly cosmopolitan civilization. A merchant from Spain can conduct business in Egypt using Roman law. A student from Gaul can study philosophy in Athens or Alexandria. A soldier from Syria can serve on Hadrian's Wall in Britain. The Roman Empire becomes the first global civilization in the modern sense. The emperors who preside over this golden age demonstrate Rome's continued capacity for extraordinary leadership. Trajan expands the empire to its greatest extent while maintaining internal stability. Hadrian personally visits every corner of his domains, strengthening defenses and promoting cultural development. Marcus Aurelius combines philosophical wisdom with practical governance, ruling according to Stoic principles while defending the empire against barbarian invasions. But even during this golden age, the seeds of future problems are germinating. The empire's success creates new challenges that prove increasingly difficult to manage. The enormous size that provides strength also creates vulnerability. Communication across such vast distances remains slow and unreliable. Regional differences that add richness also create centrifugal forces that strain imperial unity. Economic problems develop that no amount of political skill can solve. The empire's prosperity depends on continuous expansion that brings in new wealth and slaves. When expansion slows, as it must eventually, the economic foundations of imperial civilization begin to erode. Currency debasement, inflation, and trade disruptions create systemic problems that affect every aspect of Roman life. The 3rd century CE brings these problems to a crisis point. External pressures increase as barbarian tribes organize into larger and more threatening confederations. Persian resurgence in the east creates a genuine rival power that drains Roman resources. Climate change and disease outbreaks stress agricultural production and population levels. Internally, the empire fragments as regional commanders compete for imperial authority. The crisis of the 3rd century sees dozens of emperors rise and fall through military coup and assassination. Provincial armies focus on local defense rather than imperial objectives. Trade networks collapse as commerce becomes too dangerous and expensive to maintain. What's remarkable is that Rome survives this crisis at all. The reforms of Diocletian in the late 3rd century demonstrate Rome's continued capacity for adaptation and renewal. Diocletian divides the empire into more manageable administrative units, establishes price controls to combat inflation, and creates new military structures to defend against barbarian threats. The rise of Christianity adds another transformative element to the imperial mix. Constantine's conversion and the subsequent Christianization of the empire represents a fundamental shift in Roman civilization. Christianity provides new sources of unity and meaning, but it also challenges traditional Roman values and practices in ways that create lasting tensions. The division of the empire into western and eastern halves reflects both Roman pragmatism and growing acknowledgement that the original imperial system has outgrown its foundations. The Eastern Roman Empire, centered in Constantinople, preserves Roman legal and administrative traditions while adapting to different cultural and economic conditions. This Byzantine Empire will survive for another 1,000 years, maintaining Roman identity long after the Western Empire has collapsed. The fall of the Western Roman Empire is not a sudden catastrophe, but a gradual transformation spread over several centuries. Barbarian tribes don't simply destroy Roman civilization. They're absorbed into it, transformed by it, and ultimately become its inheritors. The Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, and other Germanic peoples who established kingdoms on former Roman territory maintain many Roman institutions and practices. The traditional date of 476 CE for the fall of the Western Roman Empire marks the deposition of the last emperor in Italy. But Roman civilization doesn't disappear overnight. Roman law continues to influence legal development throughout Europe. Latin remains the language of learning and diplomacy. Roman architectural and engineering techniques shape medieval construction. The Catholic Church preserves and transmits Roman administrative practices and intellectual traditions. What ultimately destroys the Western Roman Empire is not military defeat or economic collapse alone, but the loss of the civic virtues and shared identity that originally made Roman civilization possible. As the empire becomes more bureaucratic and centralized, ordinary citizens become disconnected from governance and military service. Regional elites focus on local rather than imperial interests. The common culture that once united diverse peoples begins to fragment into separate national traditions. But Rome's influence on subsequent history is immeasurable. Modern legal systems throughout the Western world derive from Roman law. Romance languages from Spanish to Romanian evolved from Latin. Democratic institutions and republican government concepts trace back to Roman political experimentation. Urban planning, engineering techniques, and architectural principles established by Romans continue to shape how we build cities and infrastructure. The American founding fathers consciously modeled aspects of the United States Constitution on Roman precedents. The concept of checks and balances, the Senate, and many governmental procedures reflect Roman influence. Even the architecture of Washington, D.C. deliberately evokes Roman imperial grandeur while trying to avoid Roman imperial pitfalls. Modern military organization, logistics, and strategy still follow patterns established by Roman legions. The importance of professional officer corps, standardized training, and systematic planning reflects lessons learned from Roman military success. NATO and other military alliances operate according to principles that would be familiar to Roman strategists. Perhaps most importantly, Rome demonstrates both the possibilities and dangers of empire and globalization. Roman success in creating a unified civilization spanning multiple continents and cultures provides a model for international cooperation and shared governance. But Roman failure reminds us that even the most successful civilizations can collapse when they lose sight of the values and practices that originally made them great. The Roman story continues to resonate because it reflects eternal human struggles with power, identity, and belonging. Rome shows us how a small community can grow into something magnificent through vision, discipline, and adaptation. But it also shows us how success can create new problems that ultimately prove more dangerous than the original challenges that inspired greatness. Understanding Rome helps us understand ourselves and our own civilization. The choices Romans made, the problems they faced, and the solutions they attempted provide invaluable perspective on contemporary challenges. Whether we're dealing with immigration, economic inequality, political polarization, or international conflict, Roman experience offers both inspiration and warning about the possibilities and pitfalls ahead. The rise and fall of Rome ultimately teaches us that no civilization is permanent, but the ideas and achievements of great civilizations can outlive their political structures. Roman civilization fell, but Roman influence shapes our world every day. That's perhaps the most important lesson of all. True greatness lies not in permanent dominance, but in creating contributions that continue to enrich human experience long after the empire has faded into history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our latest uploads. And for even more wild stories from the past, join our newsletter at www.historygoniBananas.com, where history gets even crazier.